That's it. All right, we're rolling.
Now, Def Jam's a real-life success story. Tell us about how, did you ever think it could happen? How did you make Def Jam Records happen?
Def Jam started out as a company in my dorm room. We started about a year ago. We made good records. We just got a label deal with CBS, Columbia Records, actually, for a whole lot of money.
For almost 2 decades, hip-hop's birthplace housed a label that served as its unbridled market leader. Born 35 years ago in a cramped dorm room in NYU, Def Jam became the perennial force in a culture that had previously lacked a governing entity. Helmed by Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons, the ethos behind the label can be pared back to a matter of proper representation and unstifled labor of love. I would see these groups live, and there was an energy in the room that was a very specific feeling. And then the records that would come out didn't have that, proclaimed Rubin. I just thought it was possible to make a record that felt more like what the club felt like. From its embryonic releases such as Tila Rock and Jazzy J's It's Yours, and inaugural superstars like the Beastie Boys and LL J, through the incendiary sounds of Public Enemy, Jay-Z, EPMD, DMX, and Redman, the label took all the vital talent from New York's 5 boroughs and even further afield while ensuring they placed their best foot forward. The mothership of imprints such as Def Jam South, Rockefeller Records, and the highly scrutinized Murder Inc., their unwavering finger on the pulse had meant that the mid-2000s, the label boasted a dynasty worth of talent that persevered where other labels had fallen by the wayside. But in the year 2019, it's undeniable that the company, which runs out of 1755 Broadway, has been cajoled into sharing its perch at the top of the hip-hop ladder. For the more pessimistic, it could even be argued that the label is a shadow of its former self. Through changes in administration, artist exoduses, and string of signees that have fallen short of galvanizing the industry's adoration as they'd expected, the hip-hop superpower has been relieved of the lofty stature that it once commanded alone. Its power divvied up between competitors such as TDE, Roc Nation, Dreamville, OVO, and Cash Money, among others. On top of that, the geographically unburdened nature of the internet has meant that even independent artists have the capacity to gain traction and carve out their own niche, all without having to stride through the label's hollowed halls. Last month, the iconic record company sought to celebrate their 35th anniversary in style at a special show in Williamsburg. Fresh from returning to its ranks with the fanfare of a prodigal son, DMX was primed to headline the show. In a move that was intended to represent the resilience of both Simmons and the label that brought him to the highest heights that the industry can afford an artist, things were thrown into disarray when X went AWOL. Grasping for a replacement, they find one in 2 of Simmons' former contemporaries. He was literally MIA. Fabulous and Jadakiss saved the day in the 11th hour, an insider told Page 6. With a combined arsenal of hits that predominantly landed on the charts at the beginning of the 21st century, there is no denying that the duo behind 2018's Friday on Elm Street have the requisite skill to deliver a great set. However, it's telling that a record company which once served as a launch pad for the most essential new artists now seems to be enlisting its storied past and the safety net of established artists to remain afloat. No longer unchallenged at the summit of the game, it's telling that an article published on their website just days ago saw former creative director C. Adams suggest an awareness of their ill fortunes. Def Jam was a cool label, said the legendary designer. They were hot, they had hit records, everyone wanted to be a part of Def Jam. But make no mistake, this skid towards a model that relies on nostalgia rather than innovation didn't happen overnight. Instead, Def Jam's upturned fortunes from the genre's tastemaker to a depleted force is one that began with a case of divide and conquer. At its upper reaches, Def Jam is a label that has always been fraught with personal tension that has threatened to derail them. Even back then in 1988, Rick Rubin departed from the company for pastures new. According to Russell Simmons, who'd eventually sell its stake to Universal in 1999, his abdication came as a result of the fact that the producer and infamous executive n.o.r.e. didn't get along. The beginning of a long line of fallouts and acrimonious regime shifts that were to come, Cohen, now global head of music for YouTube, recalled narrowly avoiding running the label into the ground with a litany of poor decisions. I started signing one bad act after another, he told a crowd at South by Southwest. I lost so much money. Think about it. Beasties leave, Rick Rubin, the architect of Def Jam, leaves, and Russell goes to California. I start becoming responsible for this iconic brand. It couldn't get worse. Do you remember the Afros, the family, BWP, which stands for Bitches with Problems? I didn't think so, Cohen joked. It was really bad. I was scared. Regularly vilified as a culture vulture by Dame Dash, who infamously stormed Def Jam offices to lambast the staff for keeping them in the dark about Rockefeller-related business, Cohen was but one of Def Jam's presidents who leave their posts with a varied reception. From Kevin Liles to N.o.r.e, each changing of the guard has left question marks lingering over the label's direction. However, no man left such an irrevocable impact as Mr. Sean Carter. Instituting as a N.o.r.e. administered bargaining chip to keep him with the label, Jay-Z's spell as president was a mixed bag, inking deals with Nas, Rihanna, and Ne-Yo, but permitting no short of misfires along the way. Yet when he left the post in 2009, he did so not out of any desire to rescind his place in a boardroom setting, but to plow ahead under his own umbrella. Although it was already loosening its iron grip on hip-hop and nurturing a subdivision of pop artists, the genesis of Roc Nation gave artists another handsomely funded stable to enter and further muddy the waters. Now, Rihanna has jumped ship to the modern incarnation of the Roc, whereas artists that would have formerly been shoo-ins for Def Jam contracts such as J. Cole, Lil Uzi Vert, Rhapsody, Belly, and most recently Benny the Butcher and Westside Gunn ply their trade under Jay's banner. As if those harrowing what could have beens aren't enough for the label to abide by, bear in mind that this is a company that once had Kendrick Lamar on the payroll before letting him retreat to the comfort of TDE to create one of the most garlanded discographies in modern hip-hop. As touched upon previously, one of the major issues that plague Def Jam has been an over-reliance on older stars in lieu of the new talent that any label requires as its lifeblood. In previous generations, Def Jam would routinely add another seminal debut album to its canon. In 1992, it was Redman's What The album. The next, the abrasive arrival of Onyx's Before Warren G's Regulate, the G-Funk era, put paid to their lingering financial woes in 1994. In 2004-2006, they'd repeat the feat once more by delivering Kanye's The College Dropout, Jeezy's Thug Motivation 101, Let's Get It, and Rick Ross's Port of Miami in quick succession. When veering back towards the modern paradigm, the last project they've released that would even enter the peripheries of a classic debut would come in the form of Vince Staples' Summertime 06 from June of 2015. Prior to that, they need to venture back to 2011 and the arrival of Frank Ocean on Channel Orange, a relationship that became so fractious that he covertly finessed them out of $20 million in 2017. Bearing heritage acts and pre-established artists such as Logic, YG, Big Sean, and 2 Chainz, there is a severe dearth of star power at Def Jam. In order for a label to retain its status as both a hit factory and a breeding ground for vital output, new artist moves follow the assembly line and connect with the world's consciousness on a profound level. As epitomized by recent debuts from artists such as YK Osiris, TJ Porter, and Lance Strip Chip, each of these artists, irrespective of talent, did little to even indent the wider culture with what would traditionally be their grand introduction. Elsewhere, much of the discourse and promo that surrounds their subsidiary Good Musics is contingent on rising stars, such as 070 Shake and Valet, flagrantly focused on their proximity to Ye rather than their considerable artistic merits. Floundering without any conceivable life raft, it seems that unless things change drastically, these artists are never going to reach the meteoric heights that you'd expect from signing with a label as prestigious as Def Jam once was. Advised by none other than President Paul Rosenberg, the man behind the rise of Shady Records and his prized artist Eminem, his August 2017 appointment was seen as a notable positive step in the right direction. With 15 years of rampant success under his belt, it was said that Paul's entrepreneurial drive and deep passion for artist development will build upon Rick and Russell's endured legacy. But in spite of his tireless efforts, the man behind Goliath Artists has yet to reassert the label in any tangible way. That said, it's not been for a lack of trying. In a piece of shrewd rebranding, Paul and his team began to enlist the word of undisputed as a way to reiterate Def Jam's time-honored positioning as hip-hop's biggest exporter. Then, at the beginning of the year, their social media accounts began to tease a new compilation album that bore the same phrase. Compromise of contributions from Bills, Sensei Molly, Nimic Revenue, and Ashton Travis among others, this introduction of Def Jam's apparent bright future garnered no shortage of positive coverage in the lead up to the event. but the end product received little to no fanfare. Speaking from inside the intensive rap camp at Paramount Recording Studios in Los Angeles that spawned the album, Paul Rosenberg's comments would suggest that the dire straits that their younger acquisitions are in and the diminished esteem of the label is something he's acutely aware of. Around 2017, I felt like Def Jam was in need of some reconnection and a new look forward to continue to impact the culture, he told Billboard. When I was just a fan and not working in the industry, Def Jam was the place every artist in hip-hop wanted to sign to. There was Def Jam, and then there was everybody else. My goal, with the help of the rap camp artists, is to make that case again. Sadly, this transparent reinforcement of their alleged undisputed status has only served to point out the modern-day shortcomings that they've struggled to overcome. Scrambling for a new wave that'll formally safeguard its future, Def Jam has strayed from Rick Rubin's modest desire to make something cool to play for our friends that they would like, and then making enough money to make another record, in favor of fruitlessly chasing their legacy. If they were to ever hit the reset button and clamber back to pole position, they must refute the bureaucratic business practices, the illusion that they can comport themselves as they did in the pre-internet era, and all the internal politics that led them to this low ebb, and instead heed co-founder Russell Simmons' motto to think about nothing else but the music. This has been a Hip Hop Madness original. Make sure to stay tuned and stay up to date with everything we got going on by hitting that subscribe button and notification bell. Oh, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Hip Hop Madness and join the movement.